Ubuntu 26.10 is called what? Stonking Stingray explained. What do a British slang word and a flat ocean fish have in common? Well, apparently, they make the perfect name for the next version of Ubuntu. Canonical has officially revealed the codename for Ubuntu 26.10 and it is called Stonking Stingray. And yes, before you ask, that is a real word. Stick around because today we are breaking down everything you need to know, what the name actually means, why it matters, what features to expect, and when it lands. First, let's start with the codename tradition. Before we get into the Stingray itself, let us take a quick step back and talk about why Ubuntu even has codenames in the first place. Since the very first public release back in 2004, every version of Ubuntu has carried a two-word codename, always an alliterative pairing of an adjective and an animal, both starting with the same letter. It is one of those quirky Linux traditions that has become genuinely iconic over the years. These names follow an alphabetical pattern, so you can actually figure out which release is newer just by looking at the first letter of the codename. We went through the entire alphabet, looped back around, and now we are all well into the second cycle. The naming convention was actually Mark Shuttleworth's idea. He has said the names are meant to be fun and memorable, while also reflecting the spirit or goal of the release. Something like precise for reliability or noble for long-term stability. Now, what does stonking even mean? Now, let us address the elephant or rather the stingray in the room. Stonking, what on earth does that mean? If you are not from the United Kingdom, this word probably sounds completely made up. But it is not. Stonking is genuinely a piece of British slang, and it basically means something that is enormous, impressive, or exceptionally good. Think of it as the British equivalent of saying something is massive or outstanding. Now combine that with Stingray, and you have something that sounds less like a Linux distro and more like a supercar. And there actually is a Corvette Stingray, so the name has that energy too. Interim Ubuntu releases, the ones that comes out in October, tend to have more playful, creative names compared to the long-term support versions. We have had things like Disco Dingo, Groovy Gorilla, and Wily Werewolf. So Stonking Stingray fits right into that pattern of colorful, expressive naming. Now about the animal. Why a stingray? A stingray is a cartilaginous fish, meaning it has no bones, found in coastal and shallow waters across the globe. It spends most of its time close to the seabed, often partially buried in the sand, remaining calm until it needs to move. It is incredibly adaptive, thriving in a wide variety of marine environments. You could actually draw a parallel between the Stingray and Ubuntu itself. An operating system that quietly works across an enormous range of hardware and use cases, adapting to whatever environment it finds itself in, from personal laptops to enterprise servers. Whether Canonical choose the name with that symbolism in mind or not, it works surprisingly well. Now let's talk about the official release date and key milestones. Let us get into the specifics. Canonical has officially added Ubuntu 26.10 to its public roadmap, confirming both the codename and a targeted release date of October 15th, 2026. The 6-month development cycle officially kicks off on April 30th, 2026, building on top of the Ubuntu 26.04 LTS, which releases just a few days prior on April 23rd. The public beta of Stonking Stingray will be available for testing on September 24th, 2026, while the kernel freeze is scheduled for October 1st and the final freeze for October 8th, giving developers just 1 week to wrap things up before launch day. As an interim release, Ubuntu 26.10 will be supported for approximately 9 months, receiving software updates and security fixes through June 2027. That makes it well suited for developers, enthusiasts, and early developers who want the latest technology without waiting for the next LTS cycle. Now, what features to expect? Now for the big question, what is actually going to be inside this release? Let's first talk about the Linux kernel. Based on the release schedule and kernel timelines, Ubuntu 26.10 is expected to ship with Linux kernel 7.2, with the kernel's feature freeze aligning around August 20th, 2026. Now about the desktop environment. GNOME 51 is expected to be the default desktop environment, as it is scheduled to release on September 16th, 2026, roughly 1 month before Ubuntu 26.10 launches. That means users will be getting one of the freshest version of GNOME available at the time. Now about the security improvements. This is where things get genuinely interesting. Ubuntu 26.10 is likely to remove several features from signed GRUB builds for secure boot, including support for BTRFS, HFS+, XFS, and ZFS as boot file systems, as well as JPEG and PNG image support. Support for ext4, FAT, ISO 9660, and Squash HFS will remain, all with the goal of reducing GRUB's overall attack surface. In plain English, Canonical is streamlining the bootloader to make it harder for attackers to exploit it. It is a meaningful security improvement, even if it means some edge case configurations will need adjustments. Now about App Center and package management. Canonical has also been investing heavily in the App Center, with ongoing work to expand it beyond Snap packages. Expect the progress to continue in this release cycle. Now, why this release matters? Ubuntu 26.10 Stonking Stingray will be Canonical's 45th Ubuntu release. That is quite a milestone for an operating system that started in a small room in South Africa over 2 decades ago. Interim releases like this one play a crucial role in the Ubuntu ecosystem. They are where new ideas get tested, new technologies get integrated, and new hardware support gets refined, before all of that gets stabilized and carried out into the next long-term support release. If you want to be on the cutting edge of Ubuntu development, Stonking Stingray is where that action happens. So there you have it, Ubuntu 26.10 Stonking Stingray. Officially confirmed, officially dated, and officially one of the more entertaining names in Ubuntu's long history of codenames. Whether you are a long-time Linux user or someone just getting started, this is a release worth keeping an eye on. Mark the date, October 15th, 2026. And in the meantime, Ubuntu 26.04 LTS Resolute Raccoon drops on April 23rd. So, there is plenty to explore right now while we wait. If you found this video helpful, drop a like, leave a comment telling me what you think of the name, and let me know if you are in the UK and you use the word stonking in real life, because I genuinely want to know. Subscribe for more Linux and open source coverage, and I will see you in the next one.